AVs will have a significant impact on the spatial geography of Australia and on placemaking. The reasons are, firstly, that in an AV situation, if people are happy with a 45-minute commute today, and if half an hour of that commute can actually be utilised for work purposes, then what will happen is people will be prepared to commute longer. Of interest is the fact that wealthier people tend to commute further than poorer people, and wealthier people are the ones most likely to utilise AV because the value of their time is higher. So I'm expecting some interesting geographic dispersion caused by AV, particularly if AV occurs without the introduction of mobility as a service platforms, and specifically without full integration with public transport. Now, the integration with public transport can only happen if we decide that we're actually going to increase the capacity of public transport, because the issue in Australia is most of our mass public transport systems in peak situations have no capacity left. So we're in a situation where that is a very difficult outcome to see. Now, if I'm correct and we don't invest in public transport, I think we'll not only see some interesting spatial dispersion, so people living on the Central Coast in New South Wales, people living in Torquay in Victoria on the Surf Coast, people living inland, maybe a 1.5 hour commute on farm and farmlet, because you can do that and housing prices are half and you can live with a greater amenity. And not only will those things happen in the first instance, because in that first instance we're only talking about level 4, and in level 4 what happens is actually more cars are on the road, so you don't get the benefits of less car parking, you don't get any of the sort of reductions in structured cars or anything like that. But then when we shift into robotic vehicles in the mid-2030s, then there will be more and very significant options and opportunities for spatial, I guess, reconfiguration. It seems as though in Australia there will have to be congestion charging for motor vehicles for the whole system to continue to operate in a reasonable form. I don't support the introduction of congestion charging unless it was done in an equitable manner. And so, for example, in my book, I've suggested that we actually have a mobility allowance, and so that every household, instead of just being charged to move at peak periods, every household has an allowance, and I've suggested around $4,000 based on my research. And for that, you can use that money on public transport, you can use it for congestion charges, or you can not use it. And if you don't use it, then it's taxed at the marginal rate, and you can have the rest of that money in your hand. The reason for this is to provide incentives for people to really participate in active transport. In other words, if I understand at the end of the year I can have $2,000 or $3,000 in my hand and I've just got to walk to work, I've got to ride an e-bike or ride a bike, then that's exactly what I will do. So we need to think long and hard about how we introduce this new form of diverse mobility, because in the doing of that, we will have very different sets of outcomes.